My name is Alex, and this is my story of how the worst night of my life began with just a simple click. It was an uneventful Tuesday evening, and I was browsing through a late-night forum dedicated to uncovering obscure corners of the internet. My group of friends at university, all tech enthusiasts like myself, had always been fascinated by the deep, unseen layers of the web, often dubbed the dark web. Some romanticized it as a modern-day Pandora's box, while others warned of its myriad dangers. On that particular night, curiosity got the better of me. I've always been drawn to the mysterious, so when I stumbled upon a thread discussing an infamous hallucinatory video file rumored to drive its viewers insane, I'll admit that my interest was piqued. The origins of the file, as detailed in the thread, were shrouded in mystery. Some claimed it was a government experiment gone awry. Others said it was created by a cult obsessed with altering realities. Suppose you watched it alone at night with headphones. The ultimate dare, they claimed. You'd experience things that would haunt you forever. I'd always considered myself mentally resilient, so I thought, why not give it a try? After all, it sounded like one of those urban legends used to scare kids. So I clicked on the link, which led me through a labyrinth of prompts before a file named The Doorway began downloading. As the progress bar inched forward, an unsettling anticipation settled in my stomach, but I chalked it up to just nerves, the adrenaline rush of being involved in something secretive and forbidden. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. It was past midnight by the time the download finished. The file wasn't large, which in hindsight I found strange. A powerful video concocted to torment minds, compressed into such a small space. I clicked play and leaned back in my chair, the glow of the screen illuminating my room. The video opened to ethereal, ambient sounds, barely audible whispers layered over each other. The screen flickered as abstract monochrome patterns slowly morphed, almost hypnotic in their constant motion. Nothing about it was overtly terrifying at first, merely unsettling. But then, the visual distortions seemed to reach beyond the screen. Shadows in my room growing longer, deeper somehow. It felt like the walls were bending, edging closer. The whispers grew, now new voices with distinct, harsh tones as though angry or agitated. The room grew colder, despite the thermostat holding steady. I wasn't alone anymore. I could feel it. Sweat dripped down my temple as I forced myself to keep watching, convinced it was all in my head. A cruel trick of the mind. But when I looked to the mirror hanging adjacent to my desk, I saw movement. A fleeting silhouette, watching me, lurking just beyond my peripheral vision. My heart raced. I looked away from the screen, every instinct screaming to shut the video off. But I was frozen. From the corner of my eye, the reflection changed. The silhouette was now standing still. Human-like, but void of features, a solid shadow. My rational mind screamed illusions, projections from the video. But the fear tightening around my chest suggested otherwise. The ambient sounds climbed to a nerve-grating pitch, and the whole room seemed to pulse in sync with a low thrumming that I could feel in my bones. Shadows deepened further, stretching out, reaching. My fight or flight response kicked in, hard. I shot up from my chair, nearly toppling it over, and groped for the laptop, slamming it shut with trembling hands. Darkness blanketed the room, the glow extinguished. Moons of perspiration mapped my palms as I flicked on the lights, panting as if I'd just run a marathon. But when brightness poured over the room, the shadow was gone. Only my reflection stared back, pale, wide-eyed, and seemingly alone. For a moment, relief washed over me until I heard it, clear and close, a whisper tickling my ear in a language I couldn't understand. Chains of icy dread wrapped around my spine. I was frozen, every hair on my body standing on end. It was in that moment I realized this wasn't over. I wasn't alone anymore. Even in the silence and light, something had come through. Days passed, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The sensation that wherever I went, numerous eyes followed me. Friends noticed my paranoia, attributing it to stress. But how could I explain the shadowy figures I caught sneaking behind doorframes, or the intermittent chill despite the steady level heat? Worse yet, were the dreams, vivid and inescapable. Each night, I'd find myself back in front of the screen, the video filling my vision, the whispers louder, more coherent. The silhouettes reached out with elongated arms, beckoning me into their monochrome realm. I tried to maintain normalcy, pushing through college classes, but it was impossible with an invading entity echoing in every crevice of my mind, my reality teetering on the brink. When exam week arrived, my inability to focus was maddening. Sleep deprived and gripped by terror, I decided to seek out help. Tracing the thread back to the forum revealed nothing useful, comments deleted, users vanished. Any glimpse of my peculiar affliction had evaporated. Desperation guided me to contact a friend, Dylan, who was versed in metaphysical research. He listened skeptically at first, but seemed to open up when he saw my palpable fear. Dylan suggested that my vision had unlocked something primal in my subconscious, something I wasn't prepared to handle alone. Rituals, he said, could be attempted to bind the entities back to their realm, but success was unpredictable and would require complete focus, something I lacked. In the end, Dylan and I pieced together elements from various protective rites. It had to be done during a waning moon, a symbol of diminishing influence, crop circles of salt on my apartment floor, channels for the spirits to return, echoes of ancient chants resonating between us. As we began, the temperature plummeted unnaturally. Shadows leapt to life like prisoners granted reprieve, flickers at the edge of vision, swirling eddies that gravitated towards the circle. Faces emerged, hollow eyes glaring from the ether, mouths uttering garbled curses that sent shivers down my spine. We staggered through the ritual, each syllable a bead drawn from a pulsing rosary of dread. The shadows writhed, contorted, as though ensnared by invisible binds. For a moment, just as I felt my mind might splinter, there was only silence. The silhouettes paused, retreating into themselves, before with an audible rush and abrasive chill, vanished. Relief weltered through me, and I collapsed onto the floor, breath labored, but mind clear. It was over. I should have felt elated to be rid of them, but in the aftermath, there's an emptiness, as though part of me still hovered on the fringe of their otherworldly confines. Their echoes live somewhere deep within, a permanent scar, a solemn reminder of how nearly I crossed into their shadowy realm. Looking back, I wish I could say my tale serves as a warning, but in truth, it's a testament to my naivete. Be wary of the dark corners you pursue, lest their secrets pursue you in kind. My name is Michael, and this is my story of how my life changed when I delved too deep into the unknown. It all started with my fascination for exploring the unexplored reaches of the internet, a habit that led me to corners where eerie tales awaited those who dared to tread beyond the light. I had always been intrigued by the dark web, its mysteries often whispered about, but seldom witnessed firsthand. Armed with naive curiosity, I navigated the digital mazes with caution until the night when things took a darker turn. It was a particularly quiet night. The world outside my window was still, and the only light in the room emanated from my computer screen. That's when I stumbled upon a forum, one that promised unforgettable experiences. I hesitated for a moment, but boredom coupled with a thirst for adventure urged me forward. The tagline read, "Enter if you dare, only the shadows will care." I clicked it, expecting to see nothing more than exaggerated stories and virtual campfires of ghostly narratives. But it was here that the shadows first started to linger. Instead of stories, I was met with a live feed. A simple blank screen with a countdown in glitchy numbers, a stoic guardian to something ominous. Underneath lay a message, "For the brave who stay when the clock strikes zero." There was an unconscious decision to be made, a choice now driven by a magnetism I couldn't explain. I sat transfixed, eyeing the timer until it finally hit zero. The screen flickered, then there I was, face to face with a man in a mask. His attire was sophisticated, out of place, and yet somehow more terrifying than any faceless monster. He spoke directly to me through the screen, his voice a mechanical hum gently vibrating my room. "Welcome, Michael. We've been expecting you." I bolted upright, the prick of fear now too real. My heart pounded. How did he know my name? I fumbled to close the browser, but it was frozen, as if his gaze locked me in a virtual clasp. He continued, "Let us show you what truly hides in the dark." The screen switched. Images of shadowy figures gliding soundlessly through landscapes I recognized. My neighborhood, my workplace, even my house. Each image showed them watching, waiting, their intentions obscured behind formless silhouettes. Panic replaced reason. I tore my eyes from the screen as my computer shut down on its own, the hum of the fan silencing like a breath you didn't know you held being forcibly expelled. From that night onward, things were never the same. Shadows behaved differently, not just mere tricks of light, but entities with depths and dimensions, darker than the mere absence of light should allow. I'd catch glimpses of movement by the periphery of my vision, hear whispers from the corners of rooms that should have been silent. They clung to the walls of my life, always on the edge of my perception, their presence as palpable as the air itself. Days became unbearable. Public spaces were no longer safe. I could feel them crowding me like spectators in an arena, pushing against the limits of normalcy. I sought help, spoke of my experiences to anyone who would listen. But my words were inevitably met with skepticism. Was this paranoia, or was the chasm between the known and unknown far narrower than I'd ever imagined? Desperation propelled me to the heart of my journey, the confrontation. I decided to return to where this nightmare began, hoping for answers. My computer came alive at my attempt, the screen bathing the room in a pale glow. The forum was there, waiting with an air of expectation. The man appeared again, unmoved by the passage of time. "Surrender to the shadows, or stand as one with them," he intoned solemnly. The screen shifted once more, but this time the figures emerged from the dark toward me, faces now visible. I saw friends, neighbors, even strangers I brushed past daily. They weren't ghostly vestiges. They were weary travelers between worlds, realms where light never reached. Slowly, realization dawned. The shadows were not inherently evil. They harbored those who were lost, caught in a cycle initiated by their own curiosity. In defiance or acceptance I don't remember, I reached for the screen. A cold wave surged through me, a void replacing the warmth, a pathway bridging the known and the unknown. In that moment, I understood a choice to live among the shadows, not as adversaries, but as keepers of truths only whispered in light. The man in the mask offered a nod, a farewell, a welcome, and then silence. My world reconfigured itself. Colors returned, but the shadows, their whispers different, less oppressive. They left me with a gift, a key to the understanding of my place, an acceptance of paths both illumined and darkened. No longer do I fear them. We coexist, our interactions private stories of exploration. This symbiosis is my new normal. So, should you ever find yourself staring into the abyss, remember it might be staring back, not in threat, but in invitation. To uncover or remain blind, only you can decide. This is my story of how I stopped fearing the darkness, how the shadows became my guides. They remain, patient as ever, waiting for others to find them in the deepest of nights.